So we're going to talk to you about these things: user-centered design and lessons from startups and digital government. So I'm Darius from Create Change. This is Ant from eSynergy. Our two companies work together to do user-centered design and transformation for companies like yours. So here are some of the people that we work with. And the reason that we wanted to bring you guys here today and listen to our speakers is in the work that we're doing, what we've noticed is that most companies, especially most large companies, are still being driven by the rules of the kind of industrial economy. So if you think about what that looks like, it's been going since the 1950s. You take usually a fairly mediocre product, use brand management to wrap that in very powerful brand associations, use advertising to make consumers aware of it and persuade them that that is the thing that they should buy or that they should use. And as you'll have noticed, that's not really working anymore. So in the network economy, consumers are much more savvy about what they're using or what they're buying. They can find it and work out for themselves where it's the right thing. They tell other people. So the companies that are really winning in that network economy are really tightly integrating on a rolling basis. What do our customers and users actually need from us? And how do we translate that into experiences and transactions that they'll want to use and they'll advocate for us? And the way to do that is to have this really tight feedback loop between users, marketing, design, development, strategy. So that's what works. So Mark O'Neill is not actually a bear, as you'll see in a moment. What he is, though, is one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. So Mark is a genuine pioneer of government digital transformation from early days at GDS through MOJ, BAYS, education. He can talk to you about what it takes to transform the oldest and the biggest dinosaur in the UK into something that is genuinely meeting users' needs. Jay Tulloch is Head of Design and UX at Metro Bank. So Jay's going to talk to you about how user-centered design is helping strategically drive transformation at Metro. And then we've got a panel discussion where we've got Pamela Woods from MOJ and Jason Maude from Starling Bank. And so they're going to talk to you also about the realities of driving transformation on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, Mark.
Hello everybody, my name's Mark O'Neill. For those who don't know me, you will all have used at least one of the things which I have built and delivered. So if you've ever registered to vote, if you ever signed a petition, if you have ever done anything for apprenticeships, if you had anything to do with London 2012, the Olympic Games, or if you've ever been arrested. So, digital transformation. There's no such thing really as digital transformation, because really all there ever is change. And change is constant. So what's the difference between change and transformation? Well, transformation is a tipping point. It's the moment when the amount of change in the system is so large, is so all-encompassing, is so problematic to respond to, and is usually external. All those things come together and you have to respond to it. You have no choice. If you don't respond to it, you go out of business. It's as simple as that. And we have seen over the past 10, 20 years a radical transformation of the business landscape. I spend a lot of my time working in the private sector as well as the public sector, and believe you me, be it the UK, be it the US, be it Europe, be it Japan, Africa, other places where I'm working, all these things are happening. And digital is like fire. It's like fire because you cannot get rid of it. It's a wonderfully powerful tool. It allows you to do amazing things, but it also threatens to burn down everything which you care about. That's what makes digital transformation so difficult, and that's what makes it so powerful. The core tool, the core thing at the heart of it is fundamentally transformative, but it is also really hard to manage and control. And it's also scary. And that makes transformation itself difficult because human beings, we don't like being scared. So what kind of drivers are there when we talk about change, we talk about transformation? So there are business drivers. Most business drivers, to be really blunt, are driven by ego. Okay? Most businesses have a very long response time to external pressures. If you go to the board and say, hello Blockbuster, if you don't change your business model, you're going to get out of business, what's their response? By which time they're out of business. Okay? Management is another key driver of change in an organisation. Again, a lot of that is driven by ego. You're a new boss. You've come into a new organisation, take on a new role. What's the first thing you do? Reorganise. So when we deliver change, we're not delivering change, we're not delivering transformation in a stable environment. It's not as though the world has stopped for us to deliver our change. We are delivering our change in a complex ecosystem of other changes, driven by all kinds of things. Most of these are human factors. So when you're trying to persuade people to do something which, to be honest, they probably don't want to do because it's scary, it's fire, then the two key questions you need to be able to answer are, what is it you're selling and why on earth should they buy it? What are you selling? It's really easy to go into places and say, we're going to deliver this new thing, this new product, this new service. Why should I care? What is the benefit? What is the utility? What is the outcome? Why should I give a monkeys about it? When we deliver change, there are a whole raft of costs. Some of these will be familiar, some of these you may not have thought too much about. There are people costs, okay? Not just getting the bodies, but getting the skills. Skills are really hard to find. I will tell you now, okay, that my experience is that a team of half a dozen highly skilled people, okay, and this is not 100-time programs or whatever, but a team of half a dozen highly skilled people are much, much, much more likely to deliver a transformation program than if you've got 100, 200, 300 people working on it. Time is obviously always a constraint, particularly in a moving environment. How much time do you have? The opportunity costs of doing things is something which businesses, organisations, government never thinks about opportunity cost. Government thinks of itself as being an infinite object. It has infinite time, infinite space, infinite capability, and then suddenly wakes up and realises something has gone badly wrong. In business, you don't have that choice. Why do I do this thing and not that thing? Particularly when that thing might be a short-term gain. Okay? Blockbuster, you know, oh, I'll knock 10% off rental prices. Hooray! Credibility. In transformation, the most important currency you have is credibility. And you burn through that credibility like nobody's business. When we set up GDS, okay, Government Digital Service, and we were saying to the rest of the government, we think that everything you do can be done better, because that's essentially what we were saying. That's a huge credibility gap. So one of the things I did in the early days of GDS was I essentially went out and I would continually build credibility. I would deliver things, even small things, tiny things. Some of them were even completely bonkers things. It didn't matter. They were things which showed the art of the possible. Those are things which built credibility. And my boss would then go out and burn that credibility at a phenomenal rate. But that's fine, you know, that's what we're here to do. And the last thing is pain. And the pain budget is the one which we talk about the least, but it's probably the most important. So a little while back, I was asked to come in and help somebody in an organisation. And this organisation, I won't tell you who it is because, to be honest, this example could apply to absolutely any organisation in the world. This organisation is essentially a data-driven organisation. Its data warehouse, if you like, is one vast Excel spreadsheet. That Excel spreadsheet has 65,335 cells filled. Each one of those cells is in fact a link out to another Excel spreadsheet. That is their corporate data model. That is their corporate data resource. That is their business. Okay? So, unsurprisingly, people working on a strategy said, you need to do something about this. You need to change this. So I said to them, who needs to sign off on this strategy? Who needs to buy it? And they said, the board. I said, who's on the board? And they went through it. And they said, oh, and the head of data. I said, okay, so what you're essentially saying is you're going to go to the board, you're going to say, one of the things we want to do is to make the head of data's job the worst job in the business, because we want them to take personal responsibility for this Excel spreadsheet and all the data. Are they going to sign off on that? Are they going to go, give me that pain? How do you make that case? So back to what you're selling, and it's important to think about what does transformation actually mean? Because when we talk about digital transformation, we sometimes let ourselves get stuck in a box where we think tech, and everything is tech, 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 tech. So here's a question, it's not rhetorical. So it's summer 2014. There are 2 digital companies who launched IPOs in summer of 2014. One of them was Google. The other one is also a technology company. They are also a household name. They are also a company which I suspect every single person in this room has used. Okay? So, if you put your money into Google, that's your ROI. That's pretty darn good going. Over 2,000% return on investment. You wouldn't say no to that. Company X on the other hand, forget Google, nearly almost double Google's ROI. Bloody hellfire. So who's Company X? Come on. Dyson? Nah. In the great scheme of things, Dyson's ROI on Dyson is good call, but no, not Amazon. Tesla. Jesus, if you get an ROI on Tesla, you're better off going for Uber or WeWork. Okay, I'll tell you, it's Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza are a tech company. They are solely a tech company. That's what they do. They franchise out technology. And that's what makes them generate that kind of ROI. So when you're talking about why should we do things, how do we do things, it's important to understand that context and how it all fits together. So why should I buy it? I'm a senior leader or whatever, why should I buy it? So what do they care about? An important thing to realise is that nobody cares how you do it, just that it's done. Okay? Now there's certain kind of, boundaries to that. People do tend to look askance on things like kidnapping and, one of the things which is really hard to articulate is what success looked like. The number of transformation programs I've seen everywhere, which can't actually tell me why they're doing it. We're doing it because so-and-so are doing it. You see this a lot, I have to say, in the fintech industry. We're launching this product because so-and-so has launched this product. But that product is not one of your core strengths. Why are you launching it? Well, because they've got it. They're doing credit cards for dogs. Therefore, we should do credit cards for dogs. Who wins, who loses? Remember, you're doing this in a changing environment. You're doing this in a world where everything is in motion. If you take resources away to deliver the thing which you are keen on, which you are here to deliver, somebody else loses. What's the consequences of that? So how do you do it? So none of this is revolutionary. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but we have to keep reiterating this. It's bizarre. It's 2019. We have to keep reiterating that it's about being responsive. It's being about fast and agile, not big A agile. It's about agility. It's about learning from the past but focusing on the future. Being pragmatic but also revolutionary, that's a really hard line to walk. And at the end, it always comes down to people. That's all there are just people. So how do you do it? You make it real, you make it timely, you make it owned, and you make it an opportunity. You make people excited about it. You make them think, good grief, we could do something with this. This is exciting. This is cool, even if it's like a stupid opportunity. One of the things which we built early on in the days of GDS was we were asked to build a dashboard for the United Kingdom. So the Prime Minister could sit there in the morning and could see at a glance what on earth was going on. Yeah, all right, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. So we knocked something together, D3, blah, 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 you know, all the tech stack, rest of it. But you know what we did as well? So we built it, you know, as a web thing. It's not an app or anything, but we built it so it worked on his iPad because that was the thing. And also it meant he could take it to the G8 Summit and go to Obama and go, hey, I've got one of these. That was cool. What was even cooler was we got Larry, the number 10 cat, to use it. It's the first ever paw tested dashboard service in government. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. But it's also about using the tools available to you to sell the pitch. So this is a really great slide done by a mate of mine, a guy called Andy DeVal. And Andy DeVal does these amazing drawings and stuff. We know this stuff, okay? This is all stuff we know. You stick a picture like that in front of your chief exec and they go, oh, I'm profoundly ignorant. That's part of the opportunity. You have to sell the sizzle, you know? A lot of us don't like being salespeople. We're tech people, we're digital people, user researchers, this, that, and the other. No, at the heart of everything we do, we are salespeople because we want people to buy what we're saying. So, next question about opportunity. So who knows what this is? Coniferous Standing Sales Price Index data to March 2017 from March 1984, March 1985. It's from data.gov.uk, if that's a hint. Anybody got any ideas what on earth this is or why you should even give a monkeys about such a thing? Because it doesn't sound very exciting, does it really? It sounds really dull, really boring. Imagine going to your chief exec and saying, here, look at this. This is really exciting.
Is this Christmas tree sales?
It is precisely that. This is Christmas tree sales. Christmas tree sales happen to be one of the most accurate indicators of consumer spend over the Christmas period you can find. And here you have it from March 1985. This is gold dust stuff. You would pay McKinsey's or Deloitte's or one of those other lot, you know, hundreds of thousands of pounds for this kind of stuff. It just sits there. It's just information, it's available. When you talk about transformation, the transformation has to go wider than just thinking about the business. It has to go thinking about our business models and what they look like and how they work. So, just really quickly, I'm not going to labour this. The critical thing about agility is not knowing when you're right, it's knowing when you're wrong. How quickly can you disprove the hypothesis? How quickly can you go, you know what, that's not going to work. What will work? Try again, try something different. And critical point, and I've seen this horrifically in the public sector, but I've seen it equally horrifically in the private sector. How do you stop governance from killing you? There is a fundamental rule, which is, as any project grows in importance, and as the certainty of delivery grows closer to unity, the amount of governance will soon outweigh the amount of work done on the actual project. You will spend more time reporting than doing. How do you stop that? This is the Agile Manifesto. I mean, it's not complicated. It's all kind of straightforward, sensible stuff, which is like talk to people. So how do we get, why? Not how, why do we get from that, which is kind of very simple and straightforward. Let's talk to people, let's deliver stuff early, let's focus on making stuff which matters deliver. How do we end up with that? You know, come back, Prince 2. All is forgiven. You know, what's that say? Poisson cumulative distribution. I'm taking a mick out of, not taking a mick, I'm pointing at Deloitte here, but you can pick any ones you like for large-scale agile. So, back to that thing about learning from the past, focusing on the future. Are you solving the right problem? Is what you're building going to end up more legacy, which you then have to deal with downstream? You may have to do that. Are you doing it consciously? Are you building on sand? Is there actually something underneath it? Or are you basically just building something which will never sustain? And who owns that future? So here's a concrete example. This is a while back I was involved in prison visits booking. Prison visits booking is really, really important. It is by far the largest contributor to rehabilitation for first-time offenders there is. Dwarfs everything else. Okay? And it's when we started, it was terrible. You could phone up for half an hour every week, hope you got through on the phone number, and hope you could get a date to make a prison visit on a day which worked for you. So what we did was, we built essentially a kind of Expedia style, you know, I like that slot, or this is my first choice, that's my second choice kind of thing, okay? And then what we did was we cheated. Behind this was a large, clunky, outsourced IT system. The people who ran that IT system, the outsourcing provider, whose name I won't mention, charged us £80,000 to come to 3 meetings. Not to do any work, just to come to 3 meetings. Government has the ability to sign the most stupid contracts you can ever imagine. So what we did was we got rid of them, and we cheated by putting in place, instead of an API to link a nice shiny front end to the back end, we put in place a HAPI, a H API, a human API. We built lovely responsive front end, all new tech, all shiny, all love the rest of it. And what it did was, at the end of the day, it bundled it all up and sent it as emails. And then the person on the other side liked it, because instead of them having to deal on the phone, they just sat there, having a cup of coffee, just did the emails, bang. So we got 90% of the value, 90% of the transactional value out of it by cheating. That's one of the things you can do about delivering fast, delivering early. Be pragmatic and revolutionary. So, for example, blockchain is bollocks. It's total and utter tripe. I mean, it's just the most ludicrous heap of nonsense imaginable. Grotesquely overhyped. AI is almost entirely a complete heap of rubbish, but not quite. There are some things in AI which are useful. Which one is which? How do you know? Again, think back to being a salesperson, you've got sales stuff. If you've got a team working on blockchain, you have to go, yeah, the thing is, it's like a rubbish, waste of time. So, people. Do people like working for you? It's a very simple question. Do people like working for you? If they don't like working for you, they're not going to work for you. That's one of those great truisms of life. In fact, that's the entire HR strategy. There you go, that one slide is entire HR strategy. And in terms of transformation is not just about us, it's about our culture, it's about what we do. And the thing about culture is that culture is a bit like water, which is, it fills all the available gaps. And if you don't actually do anything to define your own culture, it's defined for you. So go away and just think about, what's the one word which describes your culture? Just finish up. So there's a book which is written by an American sociologist. Essentially his PhD thesis. It's not a very good book, but it's a very interesting book. He spent a year with a British high street bank. And he wanted to know, what was the culture of that bank? What was the one thing which unified the entire organisation, from a chief exec to the person who kind of like swept the doorstep? What was the one thing which linked the entire thing together? And I'll tell you, it was kvetching, complaining. Everyone in the bank, from the very top to the very bottom, complained about the bank. You just can't get anything done, you can't get any changes made, blah, 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 complain, complain, complain. That was their culture. Why was that their culture? Because no one had defined anything else for them. Culture is like water, it will always get in. That's me.
Just before I get started, I just want to kind of get an idea of kind of how many people are kind of going through a digital transformation at the moment in the room. Okay, several of you. How many of you are thinking of it or on the cusp of a digital transformation? A couple. Okay. So hopefully in here, there'll be something for kind of everybody. So kind of whether you're kind of along your way on digital transformation or you're on the cusp of kind of launching a digital transformation, there should be some gems in here, hopefully, that will kind of help to kind of ease your transition kind of over. A little bit about me before I go on. I'm Jay Tulloch. I'm head of design at Metro Bank. So that covers user experience, user research, and user interface design across kind of all of our digital platforms, from kind of mobile app to kind of online banking, commercial online banking, business banking, and also our stores and back-end systems, people systems. Before Metro Bank, I had a career in digital transformation. Worked with some of the panel here today at the MOJ, for example, a common platform. Also at DEFRA, so large-scale kind of digital transformation across farming, and also at the kind of Ministry of Defence and various kind of London boroughs kind of around town. So I've used some of these learnings to kind of put this deck together, and I'm also kind of using that to strategize how we deal with digital transformation at Metro Bank. And hopefully you guys can kind of use some of these tools too. So digital transformation is like water, but more specifically, it's like a wave heading for shore. Like we've all been there before. We've been on the beach, we've been relaxed. It's quite calming. You look up to the distance along the horizon and you can just see kind of everything kind of moving kind of forwards, like towards you. It feels kind of very kind of like tranquil, kind of relaxing, that kind of vibe, right? The problem is they're very, very easy to misjudge. You know, we don't know the size of the wave that's kind of coming towards us, much like digital transformation. You can do so many plans, budgeting, kind of resourcing. You know, you can, I guess, plan how many initiatives you're going to run, estimate timelines, all this kind of stuff. But you don't know the sheer size when it's 2 years off, 1 year off, 6 months off, and it gets ever closer. Velocity, we don't know at what speed the digital transformation is coming towards you. All of us might be thinking about digital transformation based on our current situations, but as we've experienced at Metro Bank, one small change can totally change that, and before you know it, the velocity can speed up. At Metro, we've kind of won bids that was kind of in the news kind of quite recently to better serve kind of SME customers and small businesses. We won a lot of money, and that's been invested into our digital transformation. We were always on the cusp of a transformation, but we won kind of the top spot, 120 million, and that increased the velocity. So that wave was coming very quickly, and when you're held to account and regulations, you have to react fast. We also don't know the depth of the wave. So we don't know the depth of the waters, kind of how much research we actually need to do, how much do we really understand our customers, the propositions. We have an idea, we know what direction we might want to head in, but do we truly understand how deep this goes? So one thing we do know is that it's coming towards us, right? It's inevitable. Like digital transformation, kind of the wave is always going to kind of come towards us. So it's important that we have that North Star. It's important that the whole company, all your digital teams are aligned to that vision that we are going to do X. Without that alignment, you're going to go off in all different directions. And this is something that I've experienced kind of in other places, and it's something which is kind of imperative to the success of the digital transformation that we're going through at the moment. Cohesion. This is another lesson that I've learned kind of working in digital transformation for around 4 years. If you don't have cohesion at the very beginning and it's not a priority, what ends up happening is you have various different teams working across the organization. And to put this into context, at Metro Bank, we're working across 16 different initiatives, so different projects are running. I've worked in kind of similar places with a similar number or more, and all these teams will end up working in silos. So when you come to the end of your delivery or your supposed digital transformation, What you've actually got is not a transformation. It's maybe 16 different services that look completely different. There's no coherence between them. They're not talking to each other. They're not working in the most efficient way possible. User experience is something that needs to be prioritized, and that helps to break that rate. So when that wave is coming towards shore, the user experience are the rocks along the coastline that help to break that wave up and make it easier once it kind of goes inland. And I'll show you how. When that wave's coming towards you, it's about being fearless. You have to tackle that wave. You have to react and just jump into it and ride it. So what do you need to do? You need to prioritize user experience. It's at the center of your transformation. From gaining the business briefs, building your whole proposition, all the way through to delivery. That middle piece of the puzzle is UX, and it covers everything from content strategy, interaction design, information architecture, visual design, functionality, usability, typography, and of course, user interface, which everybody knows. But it's deeper than that as well. It covers research, it covers data, it's in contact with your customers directly, it's in contact with your business stakeholders directly. The success of your delivery is dependent on how well your design teams perform. Commercial success also depends on this as well. If you get the UX design right, so you've done your due diligence, you've spoken to customers, you've got your research, you use that to influence your product and shape how everything is going to run over the course of your digital transformation, you've got that coherence, consistency, you're almost guaranteed a high commercial success rate. So in order to set up your design function for success, I believe you need these 5 things in place. And these are things which I've learned kind of along the way. I'm not saying at Metro Bank we had all 5. We had some of these, and we've had to kind of build these processes in along the way. But those of you that are going through transformation will be able to do the same. And those who are on the cusp will be able to kind of implement some of these things and kind of get a head start. First things first, a strong in-house design team, which covers UX, user interface, research, and design operations. I'll go more into what exactly design operations is later in the slides. Style guides, design systems, and of course, design governance. And this is extremely important if you're going through a large-scale transformation. So what do I mean by a strong in-house design team? You have a management layer at the top. And this could be kind of your head of design, kind of in Metro's case myself. It could be a layer kind of just beneath that of managers that help to kind of oversee some of these projects that are running from Project A all the way to Project Z. Working on those projects, you have project leads. It's very important that you have in-house project leads for a number of reasons. Coverage, so you have that internal kind of colleague base kind of in leadership positions on a project. So any agendas that are being pushed from kind of management do actually make it into effect on a project level and are communicated, and they can provide that creative direction. Thoroughness and domain knowledge. You want that domain knowledge to be kind of as much in-house as possible, just so that can be shared, communicated. When working with contractors, consultants, and this isn't a diss or anything like that to kind of contractors and consultants, but there are shorter kind of notice periods. There are kind of tighter handovers. Kind of people can kind of roll on, roll off projects, kind of depending on kind of where they are or where the business needs them to be. So if you have a strong in-house kind of leadership team from here up, then you have a lot more kind of control over the direction of the design, how it's implemented, and the consistency kind of overall, kind of creating that coherence, which I said before is like really important. Beneath that, on the project level, you have a set of practitioners, which could also be kind of in-house, but these can also be kind of consultants and contractors as well, kind of delivering the designs, the kind of research, kind of gathering that data and kind of pushing kind of things forward for you. And these are specialists as well. There might be times where your digital transformation is kind of so large that you need external support, right? So you still do need that kind of contract help, that consultancy help as well. At Metro Bank, we're going through a digital transformation for business customers. We still have a job to do. We still have retail customers to serve. We still have our in-store, in-branch customers to serve as well. We can't neglect them. So you do need that additional layer of support to ensure that business runs as usual too. Design operations is another kind of horizontal kind of function. So design operations will help you to kind of become more efficient, help you to move a lot faster through your digital transformation. If you've got design ops, then what that means is you've got style guides implemented, you've got hopefully a design system in place. So that is kind of how design collaborates with developers in order to kind of move faster kind of throughout this transformation. And coupled with that, you have research operations. So that frees up the practitioners at this level to really focus on the customer problems that are being solved. And these guys down here allow them to move faster by providing them with constant insights, so that continuous feedback loop between kind of the business and customers. So design and research ops. So I describe these as kind of, if you've in construction or kind of ever kind of done any, I guess, development on your properties, they're your kind of load-bearing walls. Kind of without these, productivity within your design team kind of will almost definitely kind of fail, just because people will become overworked on projects. So you need to have some sort of research ops, some sort of design ops in place in order to kind of support and facilitate the designers actually kind of doing the work kind of on these and delivery teams. They require dedicated teams. So, I would kind of recommend at least kind of a team of kind of 2, 3, or 4 kind of practitioners split between kind of design and research ops. Maintenance and evolution kind of best practices. So the tools that we're using for kind of research, the tools that we're using to kind of build out our design system and style guides as well, that needs to be constantly evolved. As we're kind of working through a digital transformation and we're working on kind of separate delivery projects, we're introducing new patterns. So we might be introducing a new UI component that has never been kind of used before. Our customers have never seen it before. That needs to be evolved and added to our pattern libraries that the design ops teams will be using. And most importantly of all, they allow teams to focus, as I said before. So they allow teams to focus on the real kind of customer problems that are at hand, and they're not distracted by doing stuff side of the desk. It allows them to become more efficient kind of within their work streams and kind of deliver to the highest standard possible. So style guides, design ops kind of will kind of focus on this. It does kind of 5 things, kind of strengthens the brand across projects, provides that kind of consistent look and feel that everybody kind of loves and kind of recognizes your brand for, kind of creates team cohesion by establishing global components. So the first exercise that you need to do kind of when kind of setting out a style guide is, okay, well, where are we now? Which components do we have across all of our platforms? Which of those are now global? And those sit within a master file or a master kind of application. And then at a project level, you have separate files which, I guess, derive from that global file. And on a practitioner level, they can add those new components into kind of their separate files, and then we can kind of unify them kind of later on down the line. It creates team kind of cohesion, as I said, and kind of local components are created and we test them. So anything new that is introduced, we test it with customers to make sure that they get it. So we don't actually put things into our design libraries without putting it in front of customers first and making sure that they recognize how to use it. It's intuitive and they'll get it straight away. So when we're ready for launch, there's no kind of hidden surprises. Version controls. It allows us to see where we started to where we are now, and also to go back and kind of understand exactly kind of what it is that might be missing. Or it also, most importantly, allows multiple designers to work on one file at the same time. So you don't have that duplication. You don't have multiple design files in different places. You have one file stored in one place that everybody can work from. And ultimately, the dream is to have a design system. So this is connecting what I just spoke about around kind of the style libraries, kind of with a coded component library that bridges the gap between design and development. Why this is so important is not necessarily during the digital transformation, but post-digital transformation. If any changes are made and you have a coded design system, if we make changes if we kind of test with customers through further research and we discover that they're using the UI differently, or we need to make changes, we can literally make those updates directly to the style guide. It gets pushed to the component library, and then that gets pushed across every single kind of digital platform. So it saves time from a coding point of view, it saves time from a design point of view too, and it definitely saves costs as well. So that is essential. If you can get that as early on as possible, integrated into kind of your program or your transformation, you're onto a winner there. Helps to reduce errors and discrepancies also. One of the most important things for us kind of throughout design at kind of Metro Bank is kind of making sure that we have kind of design governance to create that kind of consistent and coherent experience that I spoke about earlier. To kind of give some kind of perspective, start of the year, I was kind of leading a team of kind of 7 designers. We're now a team of 24 designers, working across kind of, like, as I mentioned, 16 kind of work streams. So it's imperative that we have not just an oversight, but we're applying design governance across these work streams as well to make sure that there's coherence, consistency, the look and feel kind of isn't kind of affected, and kind of people aren't going off on tangents and kind of basically building kind of off design. So, you know, some people might recognize this. You start off with kind of data discovery. So every single initiative that we work on goes through a discovery phase. And then we start to ideate and kind of align with the business goals based on customer research. We go into a design solution. That gets signed off by the product owner. It goes into development, goes into quality assurance testing, and then we release and iterate and improve. You might notice that there's these little squares in between kind of these. So there's like 2 blue ones and 1 red one. These are essential to ensuring that you've got that design governance. I can't stress more how important these kind of gates are. They are design sub-authority. So anyone in the tech game was probably kind of familiar with, you know, kind of the tech design authority, the business design authority, TDAs and BDAs. There's never, everywhere I've worked, there's never seemed to be one around actual design. So kind of UX design, kind of visual design. So we've kind of created our own ones, and we've got those gates now. So everything is signed off kind of by a design forum, which is kind of in conjunction with the product owner as well. And what that allows us to do is keep a record of all of the changes. So a lot of the time when you're working through designs, it's literally, oh, we need to change this, and we need it now. And you make those changes, you make those iterations, it gets delivered. And then when you look back, you say, well, actually, that product failed, customers don't like it. A lot of designers will say, yeah, but we told you so. Having these forums and this record and traceability kind of allows you to kind of protect your design teams, but also keep track of where those ideas originated from too, and how they evolved over time. So that is really essential if you want to kind of nurture your design team, kind of protect them and their ideas, but also kind of make sure that you're not signing off on, you know, on a whim, I suppose, of kind of whatever the product owner wants. So there's the DA. So that's kind of the central kind of design authority, which consists of kind of design, kind of marketing as well, and kind of directors of kind of digital. And kind of they get kind of final kind of oversight of a product before it ships as well. This is also essential to make sure that comms is right. We've got the right tone of voice kind of before we kind of commit and kind of launch to customers. And the impact of continuous feedback. So research operations is key. We have got to a point now where research operations is running autonomously throughout Metro Bank. We were in a place probably 18 months ago where we were probably testing once every quarter. We're now testing with customers on a face-to-face basis, roughly between kind of 15 and 20 times a month now. So in terms of, you know, our maturity, we've literally kind of made leaps and bounds over the last 18 months. And that involves a really tightly kind of operated kind of research function, which requires all of those 16 teams to submit briefs on a regular basis. So weekly brief submissions, researching with customers up to kind of 15 times per month, kind of improving the quality of project outputs. I can't stress enough that every single stream of work that we're working on has seen the value of user research, and every single stream has made changes off of the back of the user research findings. So if you do have the opportunity to reach out to customers, put something in front of them, gain that feedback, do it. Because 9 times out of 10, you will find something that is worthwhile changing. It saves time in the long run. You know, there's that kind of expression that is always used, kind of invest £1 or dollar in user experience, save 100. You know, that is true. As I mentioned, all of our teams have reaped the benefits and have made changes off the back of user feedback that we would not have known until we shipped later down the line. by the time you ship it, it's gone through design, it's gone through testing, it's gone through accessibility, it's gone through development, and that is expensive. We want to save on that as early on as possible. And we always live by this mantra: fail fast, learn faster, and iterate quickly. If you follow that, best bet is you're going to get it probably 90% right when you launch. Last one is share insights and conquer the wave together. What we can do with all of this stuff, so the user research, the design ops, scaling the design team up, gaining more information about our customers, allows us to build a narrative. I gave a talk last week around kind of how UX can influence marketing. It's all around using the compelling insights to create a narrative that you can sell. Similar to what Mark was saying, kind of what are we selling? UX will help you to kind of build that picture of your customers, but also of your propositions and how they function, and kind of how best to sell them. Share learnings with delivery teams for cohesion. As I mentioned, cohesion is extremely important, so is consistency. Without cohesion, you end up going off on tangents and you have a imbalanced product that isn't talking to each other. You want that to be kind of as tightly knit as possible. And invite your execs and customers to see how products and services are lining up. A lot of the time, we might just kind of show our management teams. It's important to show the people at the top exactly what's going on, what insights we've learned, how we're integrating with customers, how we're gaining feedback, so that they can build a picture and understanding of how the transformation is going, but also where their resources are going and how they're being applied to kind of enhance this digital transformation. But also, it's important to invite customers as well, because then customers can see how invested you are kind of with them through UX. Digital transformation is not about being perfect. I've worked in digital transformation for kind of quite a while, probably half my career, and you never get it right. It's not, kind of as kind of Mark showed in kind of his slides. You've got agile. There's different forms of agile. Everyone's kind of finding their own way of how to kind of deal with it and to kind of tackle with it. But what the end result is it's about perfecting your iterative process. So how are you now going to shape products post digital transformation? How are you going to use your time during digital transformation and learnings to help to shape and evolve those products further? Digital transformation is about becoming more efficient and kind of using those tools and processes that I've kind of taught you through. Having a strong design function will play a key role in that. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a quick question while we're waiting? How did you get sign off for Happy?
How do we get signed off for Happy? So what we did was we brought in the prison officer, whose job it was to actually manage this, to tell what their life was actually like. We brought in the finance person to show that there was no money left after paying this company 80 grand. And we brought in a couple of users who spoke about their life and about what it meant to them. And that's all it took. I mean, we put them in front of, we actually ended up putting them in front of the chief exec. And the chief exec said, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it gives us the bulk of what we're after quickly. And it also then means that we can then make a clean break downstream, because we've now created this API layer. There's an API layer as well, which has deliberately abstracted us away from the incredibly expensive outsourcing partner. It meant that the organisation was able, without any real budget pressure, when it had time, to move itself to a fully automated system, which it now has. I found that if you want to drive change, bring the users in. Their stories are the ones which are the most compelling.
So Jay, so you're talking about the operations, the design and research. So when you first got to Metro Bank, what was the scale of the design resource there, and when is there a tipping point where you actually have to set up dedicated teams to do these things, do you think?
Okay, so I've been at Metro Bank for approaching 3 years now. When I first joined Metro Bank, in terms of kind of design, the size of the team was one. So it was literally just me, kind of initially for 2 weeks, and then somebody else joined kind of as a UX designer, and then somebody else joined as a UI designer kind of within, so by the end of my first month, kind of there's 3 of us. We didn't have research operations, you know, we were working on 3 channels, so kind of like business, app, online banking. So, you know, things were kind of very lean, everything was very new, finding our feet. Now we're at a place where kind of we have had to scale up, and you know this isn't all in-house, by the way. You know, we are kind of using kind of consultants, we are using contractors as well to kind of help with this shift. I suppose the tipping point is, I don't necessarily think there is a tipping point. I think research operations are just a must-have. You know, in an ideal world, you would have all this stuff set up at the very beginning. So you'd have kind of people who are kind of going out, meeting customers, kind of creating that kind of competitive narrative, which helps to kind of create new propositions and kind of sell to customers. You also kind of want that design operation, so you want those component libraries, style guides, etc., established, so that when you actually get down to nitty-gritty and you're delivering on projects, you can move ahead of a lot faster. We didn't have that luxury because you know we were already an established bank. We had to literally just kind of go in as design practitioners and kind of hit the ground running, and kind of find ourselves. And you know, we did that initially kind of with our launch of our new mobile app 2.5 years ago, as well as our kind of website. That was kind of job done for that. But now it's kind of what's the next level, and design operations are helping us to get there. So definitely, in a nutshell, it's just a must-have. Like if you can get it early on, or as early on as possible, do it.
So Mark, could you talk a little bit about instances where you've had to deliver some sort of transformation or transformational program at scale where it's absolutely had to happen on a certain date?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, a good example is the apprenticeships program. If you don't know the apprenticeships program, this is a decision made by the government to bring in a levy on employers. This money would then be given back to employers solely for the use of hiring apprentices. So when I started, we essentially had 15 months to build what essentially was a bank, a recruitment company, integration with HMRC, real-time integration with HMRC, online contracting, catalog systems, and we had a website. So we had 15 months essentially, if you like, to do a startup bank from scratch. And we had no choice. It was law. And my very first week in the job, I was in a meeting with some incredibly senior people. The most senior person in the room, who was the most senior person in the civil service, turned at the very end of the meeting, I thought I got away with it, turns at the end of the meeting, they said, "So Mark, are you going to deliver this? What are you going to say?" You can't say no, you have to say yes. So we actually delivered it, we delivered it ahead of time. And the way we did that was by being absolutely ruthless. The thing about delivery, it's back to the happy thing, is you focus on what is the core need, what is the core ask, what is the core you need to deliver, and you preserve that at all cost. That is sacred. You don't allow anything to disrupt the delivery of that core, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the core, you've got nothing. What it does then is it allows you to be ruthlessly pragmatic about it. Some people think that agile is kind of like a bit hippie. It's a bit kind of like fluffy. It's all clouds and bunnies and people being nice to each other. And there is that, you know, don't get me wrong, we do have rabbits. But agile is the most ruthless form of governance there is, because it's real time. And it's about individuals standing up and taking responsibility for delivering things. So that's what we did. We went from essentially nothing to an entire bank with what is in fact a open source version of the investment engine of a very large American bank at the core of it, which we developed ourselves. And we did that in less than 15 months. And the way we did that, as I say, was back to the thing about small team. 6 incredibly highly skilled people, given full support, and most of my life was spent dealing with noise. I'm basically like a noise reduction thing. I go around and I stamp out the noise, and I'm the person who says, is this core? And if it's not, it ain't going to happen. And that means having really hard conversations with people right across the organisation. But what I find is, so long as you are doing it in the open, as long as you're doing it in real time, and as long as you're doing it evidenced, bring the people in, you can get it done. And then you need a very long holiday afterwards.
Pamela, you've got a complex programme where you have to deliver that efficiently. You've got both digital and offline things going on, estates things going on, and you've got to keep the user at the centre of all of that stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about how you manage that and how you keep your focus?
So just to give you some background, because I lead the user experience practice in the reform programme, which is part of HMCTS, so Courts and Tribunal Service. So anybody who gets involved with our types of services are there not because they want to be there. So we're not competing with any other sort of business. These people have to engage with government in order to do this. And it's because they find themselves in circumstances that they may not choose. So they're really, really fragile. But HMCTS is transforming itself completely. So from an estates point of view, they're shutting down different courts, trying to get efficiencies in different ways. They're changing their people and how they structure them, and ultimately then how they serve the members of the public who have to engage with them too. So I think for us, because it's such a huge transformation, it's not just digital, that's just an aspect of it. It's a real organisation that's transforming. Communication is really, really key. So those channels of communication, because we've got so many different cogs in this wheel, we've got a huge diverse user group as well and stakeholders. So just after this, I'm going to go and talk to some judges who are on a steering group, a digital steering group, because they're involved in our programme as well. They co-own that with us. So communication is really key from the top to the bottom. We find service design is fundamental as well, to make sure that that vision that starts at the top filters the whole way down through to the very people who might only be in the projects for a short time, not necessarily civil servants, but that we leave behind a legacy that's actually going to be able to be used by everybody in the organisation. So I would say, even just recently, I implemented a change in our practice to make communication happen at an even better level. So really fast, remote show and tells between projects, because we've got maybe about 30 projects with user experience people across design, research and content design in all of those projects. So just staying on top of what they're all doing is a mammoth task, and that's across from top to bottom. So we just have those channels of communication that are really key, all underpinned or hanging off the service design that we know what we're doing with.
Jason, Starling Bank has great customer experience. I can attest that. We've just moved our business banking to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
When we were talking the other day, you said that you think there's a perception that people think the reason that Starling and other fintech challengers can have great customer experience is that they're not bogged down with lots of legacy technology, and that's the magic pill. If if you don't have to deal with that, you can the world's your oyster. You think that's too simplistic, don't you?
Absolutely. To echo your comments, I think that Agile does have rabbits, so does Watership Down. The problem is not the technology, it's the people. You're not going to save yourself by moving everything you have to the blockchain or AI or any other magic technology word and hope that that will save you. The problem that, the benefit that Starling Bank had is not that we got to build our technology from scratch, it's that we got to build our culture from scratch. So that we got to start off by going, we have all been We had many people who had been very experienced in banking and very experienced in technology come together and say, you know what, there are all these problems that we have previously. So it's, maintaining anything on a project basis does not work in technology, mainly because you've got that sort of governance function that builds up and up and up, that was mentioned before. And because all of the problem with software engineering is that software engineering, we have the word engineering tagged on the end, so we think of it as engineering. And so we try and manage it like we manage other engineering projects, like building bridges or building roads or buildings or what have you. The difference is that the software engineering is completely unlike all of those other engineering systems, because in those ones you can do reasonable planning up front. It's reasonable to plan up front. But once you've started, you can't change anything without spending a huge amount of money. You can't, if you start building your bridge and you realise your bridge is wrong, then you have to knock it down and start again, and that's very expensive. So you have to basically spend a long time up front planning, and then you start the building. And we tried doing that with software engineering, and it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because software engineering is so new that we don't have all the experience, the thousands of years of experience that we have with building bridges. We don't have those, and the requirements are normally much more complex and much more variable and can change much more. However, if you start building your software bridge and you find that you've built it wrong, you can just go Control X, Control V, and now it's correct. So the advantages and the disadvantages of software engineering are completely switched over from how they are in regular engineering. And so the way you maintain it needs to be completely switched over as well. And that's a lot of what the agile philosophy is about. It's about switching over the way you do things. So we at Starling Bank have it is the most agile company I've worked at, in that it's the company that most embraces the agile philosophy of doing, iterating fast, doing things quickly, seeing how quickly we can gain knowledge about what the customer is actually wanting out of our systems, not having processes in place for the sake of having processes, but focusing on people first and saying, what do our customers' people want and what do our internal people need to do their job correctly, and focusing on all of that. And so we are, agile across the business, which means that we don't have any business analysts, we don't have any people who are trying to interface between a project-based business and a product-based engineering team. The entire business is trying to move in that agile fashion. It is not always soft and cuddly, it is sometimes brutal, and you need to be very flexible and change at breakneck speed in order to get things done. So it is more harsh than the project-based world in many ways.
Jay, so you've had to, so I would guess you've not had the benefit of being able to embed your practice into a very agile culture. You have had to work with a lot of legacy processes and legacy technology, and embed sort of user-centered design into that process. How have you got any tips for how to do that?
Yeah, I think first things first is basically just all around kind of culture and that understanding that your customer is at the center of everything that we do, and kind of that is kind of the focus. Luckily with Metro Bank, the whole kind of ethos of the company is customer centric. So kind of from kind of the founders and kind of how we interact and engage with kind of customers in our branches, our stores we call them, that experience needs to be transitioned over to the digital space. So that was fairly easy to kind of get that sort of kind of buy-in, that people will understand it culturally throughout the business from top to bottom. The harder bit is how much investment is needed kind of within design in order to kind of scale and kind of create those experiences kind of more widely kind of across the bank. And that again kind of involves just kind of like proving it, I suppose. kind of, like I mentioned, that I was the first kind of UX hire kind of at Metro, kind of others followed. And it was our jobs to kind of be that voice and kind of bring customers in, bring stakeholders into those usability testing sessions and research sessions, and ensure that they have visibility of, I guess, the benefits of kind of speaking to customers and the changes that those conversations will actually have on the organization. And kind of we've seen the success that's had on our mobile app, for example. We kind of worked from a kind of free 2.8 star kind of app all the way through to a 5-star app now, over a kind of a short time period, as I mentioned.
So by that you mean customer reviews, right?
Customer reviews on the App Store, kind of etc. So, and this is just through, kind of speaking to our customers, understanding them, understanding exactly what it is that they want and the value that we can bring. We recently kind of launched, about a year ago now, kind of a new insights feature off the back of kind of customer research and kind of understanding that people want to know more about their transactional data. Bring in stakeholders into those conversations, into those usability testing sessions, help to expedite that process. Instead of challenges, kind of we got encouragement. And that's been ongoing kind of through this kind of new phase of our like journey where we've scaled up kind of hugely, probably kind of like 5 times now, and it's all just based around just demonstrating that value that customers bring. I can't kind of stress that enough, really.
So, final thought from all 4 of you. I think the thing that I have heard most from all of you is culture and ways of working. So, starting with Jason, maybe just a final thought, 1 or 2 sentences. That seems like a hard thing to do.
Yep.
Where would you start? Where do you start?
Where you start is you really have to ask yourself the question: why are we doing this? Do we actually want to do this? Do we actually want to progress through it? And what is our end state that we are going to move towards? A lot of companies seem to race into things like digital transformation or cultural transformation because they think they have to do it. They've gone to conferences where they've been told change or die, and they go, oh, I don't want to die, so we have to change. But the problem is that just changing for changing's sake isn't going to work. See the British government. So you have to know why you're changing, what you want to achieve out of it first. You really have to embrace that, and embrace that not just as the executive or the management, but you have to embrace that as a company, that we are going to try and change in this way for these reasons. This is what we want to achieve.
Thanks. Mark?
So I covered a lot of this in my presentation, but I think for me, the core thing about it is you have to live it, you have to demonstrate it. You cannot drive change by telling people to change. You can only create change by creating a model which then starts driving the culture. You have to become an infectious agent of driving that change. And that is really, really, really hard, because you'll spend at least the early part of your role swimming against the current in your company, and you will be probably the least popular person in the organisation, which is one of the reasons why I love this job.
Jay?
I think kind of often like design is seen as a luxury, kind of within kind of companies, and I think it's kind of a matter of understanding that design, as mentioned in my presentation, runs a lot deeper, and kind of should be kind of at the centre, or at least kind of an equal partner kind of within your kind of transition, kind of digitally. Because if you have those kind of founding kind of practices kind of laid out and executed well, it will allow you to kind of move a lot faster. It will kind of lessen the, I guess, amount of kind of complicated and difficult conversations that you'll need along the way, because you'll be collecting evidence based on kind of customers, based on your products as well. So I can't just stress enough kind of how important design is.
I think in my experience, change has already been happened whenever I've joined the programs. The programs exist because the change is a given, we're doing it. So from a cultural point of view, I think personally we just never I just never stand still in that area. I don't think I've ever had the luxury of thinking we've totally nailed the culture. So for me, I spend quite a bit of time reflecting on what's working for the environment that we've got and for the people we've got. We've got a lot of contractors in my programme coming from different backgrounds with different agendas, different experience. So and suppliers as well, coming in from all different backgrounds. So pulling that together to create a culture is something that I work really hard on, and it changes. I'd say every 3 to 6 months, I'm thinking again, what else would work, getting the feedback from the people who are working in that environment to say, how can we make this better? So I think it's change within change for us to try and create a culture that designers and researchers and content designers want to work in and can deliver their best work.
How do you actually get the communications to work? Especially using lots of contractors, and they're coming at a different point, so how do you get the idea shared between them?
And we have multi-sites as well, so we've remote working and flexible working, so we've got the balance, we've got the, I suppose the challenge of all of that. We use, it's something we work really hard on again, so we do a lot of remote working to share. One of the feedback that we had recently was that people just they were meeting up in their disciplines, like researchers together and designers together, but they didn't know enough about what was happening in each other's projects. So we flipped it on its head and actually reduced the amount of discipline meetups that we did, or looking at each other's work in that area, and did many more project-related show and tells. We shrank it right down to no questions, just pure communication. Just tell us basically every week for 15 minutes what you're working on. And it runs to time. It's brilliant. It's one of the best things we've done recently. We get through 4 projects a week, and it's just so good and fast. And there's no opportunity for people to say, I didn't know. I didn't know you were working on that. I didn't know you'd solved that. I didn't know that was happening.
We've probably got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Has anybody got any other questions for the panel?
One quick question, Joe. You were talking before about how you did 15 customer interactions a month. Did you say that was all face-to-face, or how do you do that with the 2 researchers?
No. So the research ops, it consists of 2 people. What they do is they leverage the expertise of the UX designers kind of on the projects. So in terms of facilitating those sessions, the UX designers will do that. I was literally just about to address this point with this gentleman over here kind of before the panel started. So initially, kind of what would usually happen is a UX designer would kind of plan the sessions, they'll engage with recruitment agencies, which has usually a 3-week kind of lead time. They'll plan it out, write all the questions, kind of write out the tasks that are going to be tested for the solution. They'll also kind of find the right environment, so book the meeting rooms or kind of book the kind of sites to kind of test on. They'll also kind of facilitate those sessions as well, kind of arrange times for also observers to kind of engage in session 2, as well as run multiple sessions kind of throughout the day. Research ops takes the bulk of that away. So because we've got weekly submissions into research ops, so I've got a brief, a very high level brief that I want, research ops basically does the rest of it. So all the UX designer has to do now is attend the session kind of with the kind of participant as they come through. So it makes things a lot more efficient. It means that the UX designers on projects can focus a lot more on the problem at hand and kind of solving that problem. And it means that they're spending less time side of the desk kind of working out plans and kind of logistics, and we just take that stress away from them.
Do you think there's a bit of an offset or a trade-off as designers when you're actually involved in doing the testing, planning it out, or actually running the sessions and getting that feedback? It really sticks with you, whereas when you're taking feedback from somebody else, it takes a while for that kind of gain weight, and so you really feel it. So you understand kind of what the solution means.
Yeah, which is why it's really important that the practitioners on the projects are facilitating the sessions, but the logistical side of it is taken away from the ops, is taken on by the ops team, which frees up time on the projects for the practitioners.
Do you also do video remote video calls as well, not just face-to-face interviews?
Yeah, so we do remote testing as well. We do surveys. To date, over the last few months, we've had 300 or so kind of survey responses. That's how kind of regularly we're doing surveys as well.
And do you guys facilitate it yourself, or do you use an external sort of third-party company?
Everything's being facilitated ourselves at the moment. Before, we were kind of heavily relying on remote kind of usability testing sessions through a third party, and kind of companies on board to kind of help facilitate those. But now we're kind of very self-efficient on that.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank the panel.